Hello everybody, how's the writing going? This month I'm working on a revision. I'm writing the second draft of a middle grade fantasy adventure novel that I've been working on. So I thought I would go over my revision process. So these are the things that I do when I'm revising a novel. So here's how I've been writing my book. I have not outlined anything. I started this book with chapter one, not knowing what it was going to be. It was more of a creative writing exercise, and I liked the characters that I created. They were in an interesting situation. They had an immediate conflict, and by the time I was done with chapter one, which was about 4 or 5 pages long, I wanted to know what happened to them. I wanted to know more about them, who they were, and so I continued telling the story and I continued to make discoveries. Now, a lot of people do not write that way, so I don't know how helpful my advice is going to be. If you plot everything out, then maybe some of these tips don't apply. But if you write by the seat of your pants the way I do, then this might be helpful. So, throughout the first draft, hello, doggy, hello. So, throughout the first draft, I would write notes to myself at the end of chapters, and those notes would basically be notes to my future self, to my future editor self that was going to be writing the second and third draft. Some of the notes are like this. I have a note here that says to add a description of the halfling's green cape, so that's pretty easy to do. Or I might have a note like this: fix the action sequence and don't break her nose, just give her a bloody lip. So these little notes are sometimes encouraging me to go back and fix things or tinker with things, or if I know that I'm going to need more description or I'm going to need to have a stronger emphasis on something, but I didn't want to do it in the first draft, then I leave a note to my future self. So in my writing process, the first draft is all about me, making me happy, being in sort of a dream space, coming up with a story that's exciting for me. Then the second draft is about making the story ideal for the reader's experience. So when I'm going through the novel again, I'm making sure that everything is clear to the reader, because I have my ideas of what's going on up in my mind, but the reader does not have that luxury. So I want to make sure that I have enough description, but not too much description, because I want to move the pace along. I want to give an impression of what the characters look like and what the characters sound like, and I certainly want to have the personalities come across. But I also want to invite the reader to take part in the act of creation. So I'm giving just some impressions of what the characters look like, and I'm letting the reader do part of the work, coming up in their imagination with, who these people are and what the places look like. In Stephen King's On Writing, he recommends that you finish the first draft and put the book away he puts it away for about 6 weeks. Actually, I believe what Stephen King does is he buries his manuscript in a pet cemetery for 6 weeks, and if the book is good enough, it crawls out of its own grave and makes its way to the bookstore. Anyway, I don't let that much time go by. Once I finished the first draft of the book that I'm working on now, about 5 days went by and I started the revision process. But 5 days for me was enough of a break, because I started writing this book in January, and so by the time I finished the first draft, that was in October. So when I went back to look at the opening chapters, I had not read those chapters for a long time, so it was new and it was fresh to me. And that's the point that Stephen King is trying to make. You want to approach the book when it is with new eyes. William Faulkner is attributed with the phrase, kill your darlings. If you want to be a writer, you kill your darlings. And I think what he means by that is that if there's, writing, maybe you've got a phrase that's really poetic and eloquent and you think it's so wonderful, and he recommends that those are the phrases that you should kill and you should get rid of those. I'm not going to kill my darlings because they don't happen that often, if I'm getting the idea of what a darling is. So I don't kill my darlings. However, I will kill tangents, I will kill needless exposition, and I will kill needless internal monologue. I've noticed in the second draft that I do that too often, and it's not adding to the story. So I'm really trying to minimize the internal monologue and only allowing it to seep into the narrative when it adds to the characterization or the story development. So what's been my favorite part of the revision process? I think these moments. I didn't even remember writing that. I'm so brilliant. My least favorite part of the revision process is when I find something that is inconsistent and then I need to go back and fix things. And if I make a mistake that has a ripple effect, that can be frustrating and energy draining and time consuming. For example, oh right, he can't fall off a cliff and die, he has wings. Ugh. So a couple more things that I would recommend trying out that work for me is that I read my work out loud while I'm doing the second draft. So listening to my own words helps me catch mistakes, it helps me understand tone. Also, to help me out with tone and style and a sense of voice, I make sure that I'm revisiting some of my favorite books that match maybe the tone and the style of the book that I'm going for. So, I have selected A Wrinkle in Time. I've read this about 6 or 7 times now, so I'm not reading these all over again, but I'm looking at different chapters, I'm looking at the way they open. The Great Good Thing, a wonderful book that I've actually have not had the pleasure of reading in its entirety, so I'm about halfway through it. This, when I was reading to my daughters when they were younger, this was our favorite series, The Mysterious Benedict Society. Oh, and of course, going back to Stephen King, this is Stephen King's fantasy novel that is almost kid-friendly. It is called The Eyes of the Dragon, and the prose is quite lovely. Groo is a comic that started, I believe, in the 80s. I loved reading it when I was a kid, and it's about an individual who goes from town to town messing things up, and that's a little bit in the spirit of my book. The characters go from place to place, and havoc ensues. So that is a little overview of what I'm working on and my revision process. I'd love to know about your revision process, so please leave a comment and tell me what you're working on and how you go about creating your second and third drafts of your book. And as always, if you like these videos, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell thing, tell your friends, do whatever you can to spread the word. I appreciate it very much. And we're on, what, day 6 of NaNoWriMo, so I hope everything's going well. Remember, no pressure. If you get to the end of your novel at the end of November, that's wonderful. But if you get halfway through your novel, that's wonderful too. So keep writing, keep storytelling, keep revising, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.